Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. A joy to be with you today. We're streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe there. Please do that. And then go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only place where I can get friends. Please, please. Funny thing that happened on the way to the farm. We were up to more than 3 million streams a week, Daryl Jones, Attorney Fancher, and Dr. Latrice, but I think maybe my politics got in the way. So they've really depressed my algorithm. So what I need you all to do is like the show. Please, 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 please. It's been very interesting, but this is kind of the price you pay for independence and for being in this space. I'm not whining about it. We're just going to roll with it. How about that? And then I am on X at Santita J and the Santita J Show. As we think of you, Attorney Daryl Jones, and everybody here, on Monday, Greg Palast will be with us. He will be with us at 930 East 50th Street at the Rainbow Push International Headquarters. Starting at 6 o'clock, we're going to show Vigilantes, Inc. Please get on over there, everybody, because if you want to be inspired to vote, if you want to see how you're being removed from the vote, even up until the day of election, you need to see this movie. And we're going to have the filmmaker there, which is fantastic. So we'll have little light snacks. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a really, really great time. And, you know, Greg is always entertaining, but he is always full of information. We're going to have a wonderful panel with so many of you. And it's just going to be a family kind of event because you can bring your kids. I think you should. Part of what fires me up about these issues is that our parents, my mother and father, Jesse and Jacqueline Jackson, took us everywhere, Attorney Mark Fancher. You know, there are pictures of us on picket lines, and we would go to the meetings. And then our parents would make it their business to explain to us when we were very young what we were seeing, what we had just seen. You've got to bring your children in, everybody. You've got to bring them in. You do not serve your children well when you want to shield them from things. I was reading something about some people I know whose parents, were so traumatized by Jim Crow, they didn't want their children to see that. I understand that, but if they don't see it, if they don't understand it, if you don't explain it to them, they're not prepared for it. This is not. So we have to do that. So please, everybody, get on over to see Vigilantes Inc. We are less than a month away. We're like 3 weeks away from the election? Not even. And here we are. It's almost a dead heat if you believe the polls. And the polls are snapshots in time, but it's a very real thing. It's a very close election. And they tend to measure people who are going to vote, but then there are a lot of voters who are not measured. But what we've been doing in this campaign, Attorney Fancher and Attorney Jones and Dr. Latrice, is something that I've been talking about it, but I said, let's make this the center of the conversation today, as I've been talking to you. So many people are focused on former President Trump's personality and the personalities in these races that we're not looking at policy. And policy is what we're going to live or die on. So let's get past the personalities and get into the policies. If you don't believe it's true, let's go back to the Clinton years. And hey, I sang the national anthem at his inauguration. I happen to personally like the Clintons very much, while disagreeing with their policies strenuously. Because he was so engaging and so nice, and I could tell you on personal experience that Bill Clinton never meets a stranger. President Clinton never meets a stranger, and he remembers the little things about you all the time. And he's always looking for a way to be helpful to you. I don't care who you are. If you're working in the laundromat, in the kitchen, he's your children's names, all that. He does that. And that pulls you in. And he means that because as he's from a small town, he grew up poor and all of that. And he never forgot that. That having been said, it was under him that we really lost welfare, Attorney Mark Fancher. America was deindustrialized with NAFTA. I mean, the party was taken, the Democratic Party and the country was taken all the way to the right. But because we liked them, we just said, okay, And then we told many black leaders to shut up and sit down. And other conscious leaders, shut up, sit down. This is a nice guy. He's doing the best that he can. Okay. Well, that's why you have to watch it, everybody. You got to push on anyone who is running, uh, needing your permission to occupy an office. You must hold them accountable. And before they get there, before you give, don't give your vote, negotiate it. Find out where they stand. Liz Cheney agrees with Donald Trump 90% of the time on policy. She has a personal grievance with him because he kicked her father and mainstream Republicans to the curb. That's all that is. She's just mad about that. But she stands with the so-called MAGA crowd, and not even them, the hard right-wing Republicans, throughout her whole life and career and her voting career. So let's get down to policy. Everybody says it's the economy, it's the economy, it's the economy. I can't pay my rent. I can't afford to buy my groceries. The economy, the economy, the economy. And then police reform. I mean, there's so many issues that people, and Gaza, this expanding war. Of course, the head of Hamas, the man who is purported to have pulled together the Hamas attack October 7th of 2023. Well, he's been killed. But what do you think is going to be the blowback on that? Because I promise you, Attorney Mark Fancher, let me begin with you. I think there will be blowback. And I want to know, what about policy? Because I don't think we're talking about that, Attorney Fancher. I mean, like, at all.
Oh, we're not, and we won't. Neither of the candidates is going to touch Gaza. There are many who continue to insist that it makes more sense to vote for Kamala Harris than it does Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has made it clear that he's on board with the genocidal program, and Kamala Harris, at least that's somebody that we can talk to about this, and maybe she can be a little bit more open to the ideas that are going to result in policies that will result in peace. But as I see it, I don't see her being any better on this issue than Donald Trump. She has doubled down many times on the idea that she's a staunch Zionist. Anytime she is asked about this issue, she defaults to her standard mantra, which is Israel has the right to defend itself, and I stand by that. And when pressed, then the most that she will say is that there needs to be a ceasefire, and we're working day and night on trying to achieve one. And I don't believe that they are, particularly if you look at the glee that Joe Biden displayed when he learned about the death of the Hamas leader, and saying that it's a great day for Israel.
Oh my God.
What
But wait, but hold on. Because I have to tell you, as someone who believes in God, as someone who really works toward being a Christian, that for me was very unsettling. I did not like that, Mark.
No, not at all, not at all. And it doesn't matter what kinds of crimes a person commits. To take joy in somebody's death is just unconscionable. And particularly in this context, when arguably, the actions of Hamas, though they may be in some ways immoral, they may be misguided, they may be criminal, there may be all kinds of implications for what they're doing, but they occur within a context of resistance. That this entire conflict, the tensions that exist between the Palestinians and Zionists, began in 1948. When people came in and started pushing people off of their land. And so naturally, there's going to be resistance to that in many different forms. And in sometimes, violence creates violence. And so it's not anything that's to be, that's surprising. But beyond that, if we return to Kamala Harris, and the hope, the vain hope that she's going to somehow engage in some sort of policy change, we have to look at what she has done and what she is doing. When someone did try and force the discussion of Palestine, when she was speaking at a rally in Detroit, she essentially and effectively told them to shut up. When people tried to engage in some sort of meaningful discussion about Palestine at the convention, she didn't give them a platform, didn't give them an opportunity to be heard, turned a cold shoulder to them. And even now, when the polls are showing that she's losing ground, if she's not already hopelessly lost the state of Michigan, primarily because of this issue, because people in Dearborn and others who are not necessarily Arab or Muslim, but who support the uncommitted movement, have made the decision that they cannot, in good conscience, vote for her. Even in the face of all of that, she has refused to come forward and to actually sit down and talk to people in a meaningful way about this in Michigan. When she found that her support among Black men was faltering, she immediately went on with Charlemagne de God to try and bolster her support among them. Anytime she senses that there is going to be some loss of support or erosion of support with any group or any demographic or any community, she immediately tries to address it, even to the point of going on Fox to do an interview. But when she senses that there is a concern, serious concern about Gaza, she says and does nothing. And what that tells me is that there is absolutely no hope that this woman is going to depart from the path that the U.S. has been walking lockstep with the Israeli Defense Forces in killing thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent Palestinians. And so I think that informs us as voters with respect to that particular issue.
Do you think that, it seems to me that it seems that's really the premise of this conversation. People are, do you think, is it just me, or do you think that people are just looking at personality? Because many people say that there will be a difference with her with Gaza and that she will do things differently. And, and you have made the point over and over and over again that the presidency is not what you all think it is, everybody. I mean, it's a very, very controlled system. That was something that I saw when my father ran. Like, whoa, wait a minute. You don't get in here unless you agree to certain things. I mean, because it makes me question, okay, who's the threat? So, I mean, I understand why Robert Kennedy, who questioned certain orthodoxies, he won't get close, Mark Fancher. And I would even say that about Trump. And I'm not a supporter. But that having been said, if you don't support certain orthodoxies, I mean, look at what happens to you. Look at what happened to JFK. I mean, help me out with that.
Yeah, well, I think there is that. I mean, even if she were inclined to go a different way with respect to Palestine and Gaza, I think that, as you say, there is an imperialist agenda that's at play and which guides and limits what a president can or will do. There is that. But beyond that, with her, it seems as though it's not just her uh, feeling the limits, the institutional limits of the presidency, but an enthusiastic embrace of the Zionist program, an enthusiastic embrace of what Netanyahu is doing. And it's really telling to me that, there are these ads that are being run on television, and I've received flyers and other things from groups that are advocates for Israel, where they are saying, be assured that this woman is standing firm with Israel in its noble fight. And so they're confident enough to give her that type of endorsement, which means that on some level, this isn't just a matter of her conforming to institutional requirements or the job description that imperialism imposes on presidents and presidential candidates. But she really is on board with the Zionist program, and I think that's quite telling.
Hmm. How do you think it? Because I'm seeing many Black men across the board who are saying, we're focusing on policy, not on personality. Do you think that's a widening belief, or is that just few uh, a few people in the Black community?
I think that there is something there. I think that there is an understandable reaction by many, um, but I think to some extent it's the manifestation of it is uninformed and misinformed many times. They on some level are feeling the pain and the hurt of an economy which may not be what it could be. It's probably not as bad as many people imagine it to be or are describing it to be for political purposes, but they see that. But beyond that, I do think that they have looked at the Democratic Party and have felt insulted by it, that they feel disregarded by it, disrespected by it. And particularly in a case where you have had a Black president in the past who came forward, they gave him enthusiastic support, almost 100% support, suppressed their voices of concern when he was not doing the things that they would hope that he would do, and with the hope that at some point he would come through for the Black community and deliver something on things that were quite important to them, most notably with respect to the criminal justice system. It was during President Obama's administration that there was so much attention on police violence, so many notorious incidents of it, disturbing incidents of it. And even then, we did not see from that administration the type of policies, the type of approaches, the type of actions by the Department of Justice that potentially could have shut that down. If instead of what they did when there were these notorious incidents of police violence, terrible killings, murders by police of Black men, Black women, if there had been federal prosecutions, heavy-handed federal prosecutions every time it happened, along with a threat by President Obama from his bully pulpit to all police officers, I'm telling you this, that if you engage in an unwarranted killing of Black people or other people simply because of race or other reasons which are unlawful, you will be punished. If he had made that threat, I think that things might have been different, but he never did that. And I think that people look at that and then they say, oh, now we've got another Black woman who's coming around who wants to be president, and she's saying less about us and to us than President Obama did. And so, and she just expects us to just fall in line and to do what she hopes that we will do in terms of giving blind support, without complaining or expressing any concerns. No, we're going to demonstrate that we're free thinking and self-determining and independent, and we're not going to give her our vote. And I think the error is in believing that they're helping themselves and helping their community by giving the vote to Donald Trump. So I think there's a lot of that there. And more globally, I think that the concerns about the economy have very little essentially to do with the positions that these candidates take than it does with a structural and institutional uh, feature of capitalism as a system. That capitalism is a stupid system. It's an irrational system because it says up front, you are going to have periods when there is economic health, and you're going to have periods when there is economic depression and recession. And there will be booms and there will be busts, and the economy is unpredictable, it's wild, it's crazy, and there will always be people who are extremely poor. This system will never eliminate poverty. And so when people complain about policies and as it relates to the economy, uh, it's really sort of a charade. Uh, the presidential candidates really can't do anything about the economy. They can't control it. They can't ensure continuing and consistent prosperity for and economic health because the system itself, its very DNA, prevents it. It's just a question of whether you happen to be lucky enough to be president at a time of economic growth, or whether you have the misfortune of being president during a period when when you are experiencing an economic downturn or poor economic health.
My question for you, Daryl Jones, has layers because you're out with people all over the country, registering people to vote, and you're seeing who's unregistered, right? I mean, I mean, not just the numbers, you're seeing the people, and they're really beginning to express. I just think it's a zeitgeist. I think it's the spirit of the times. People are expressing their disappointment in the system that we have. The studies come out that 2/3 of Americans do not trust corporate media at all. They do not trust Congress. They do not trust the Supreme Court. They do not trust the presidency and the executive branch. I mean, it's danger. It's really socially unsustainable to have this many Americans distrust and mistrust the system. So when everybody tries to put January 6th on Trump, I'm like, no, no, no. He's tapped into something. Should he have handled it more responsibly? Of course. But don't act like this stuff is not out here, Daryl, because it's out here. And if you just listen to shows where they open up the phone lines, if you just get out the way and let people talk, they'll tell you how they feel. So you tell me. I mean, because we are talking about personalities, but it's just like I was outlining with President Kennedy. I mean, President. Oh my goodness! I saw him shake his hand in my mind. President Clinton, someone who we've all met, know, um, like him tremendously, but we also see, what he was able to do because he had such a pleasing personality, and we're trying to undo a lot of what he did then. If I take the train all the time, so seeing the deindustrialization of America, did it start before him? Absolutely. Was it hastened by NAFTA? Absolutely. So, what say you? What are you seeing? Because we're looking at their personalities, but like on Gaza, there's really no daylight. I'm not talking about personal feelings. We're talking about how the policy is going to play out.
Right.
And and if you think that killing Sinwar is going to end this thing. No, no, no. I was reading on Twitter. Now you have given birth to 1,000 more. So you got the floor. And of course he can be heard with Barbara Arnwine every Tuesday. You didn't think I was going to let you get away with that. At 12 noon on WOLDC on his radio show, his and Barbara Arnwine's radio show. It's a fantastic show. Please give them your support.
And thank you, Santita. In talking about and going around and listening to people and having the conversations, this past week I had the opportunity to go into one of the Black barbershops with Black men, to have a conversation with Black men that are in, just general conversation with folks that come in to the barbershop. And for, and just for clarity, this barbershop was in Southeast DC, old Southeast DC, off of Marion Barry Way. Okay, so it's one of the lower income areas and financially challenged areas where Black men are coming together, and we're having a conversation. And of course, one of the things that was raised, is that when you discuss the distrust that Americans have of the government currently, you would have to take that distrust and put it on steroids to understand what's happening then in the African American community, because the African American community is distrustful, rightfully, of government as it exists. And so, if you give a situation now where you have so much distrust of the Supreme Court, so much distrust of what happens in Congress, so much distrust of what's coming out policy wise. If that's what's happening in the general society, you can rest assured that in the African American community, it's much higher. It's much worse. It's almost we didn't trust the Supreme Court, and now you're seeing why we don't trust this system. Everyone is now getting the same chance to see it, and it's now sort of buttressing what we would always believe to be in place anyway. And so when you put that in place, and I listened to the conversation with the black men that we were having in the barbershop, and much of that conversation was a distrust of Vice President Harris, but because she was a prosecutor,
Okay, because I'm trying to find out. You help me because you've been a prosecutor too, and so I'm only saying that because you've occupied that space. You know what that's like, and you also have been very active politically. You saw, I mean, I think that sank her campaign in 2020. I mean, because wow, she had 20,000 plus people at her opening event, but as soon as she got out here on the big stage, I mean, people went after her as a prosecutor, and she didn't make it. I think she came in fourth in California, in
right.
her home state, and where she was a sitting senator.
Right. And what became interesting in this conversation, though, was that when they initially started, and some started after because she was a prosecutor, others then came to her defense, talking about what she was able to do and that she was doing her job. And these are non-lawyers, necessarily highly political people or anything like that in the trenches. But what became interesting to me was that their focus became less on her being a prosecutor and more because the question then became, well, why don't you think she'll win, or do you think she'll win? Do you support former President Trump? And the issue that then arose was one, and it gets into your policy piece of economics. And the question was, who would best benefit our community? And the argument that was raised in support of former President Trump and subsequently corrected was that he gave these checks out, these $1,200 checks. And that's the type of person we need, someone that's investing in our community that way, giving us money directly rather than these other policy pieces that people are talking about.
But Attorney Jones, that was during a pandemic. I mean, that was like during an emergency. This was not like, I mean, and it was a good thing that it happened because it shored up some people, but it was during the pandemic. It was not endemic to his policies, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's part of what was coming out subsequent in the conversation. But many in the room certainly took the view that, not only did he give a check, and I knew it came from former President Trump because his name was on my check. So he gave me money, and he will give me money. He gets me. He's going to invest in me. And so it was from that the conversation, that I brought forward with regards to Vice President Harris and dealing with the policies, the economic policies that are specifically set for black men in the community that she now has lifted forward, that now has been lifted up. And that shifted the conversation, certainly shifted some of the mood, conversation, of what was going on in that conversation. But what I find, as I've traveled around, is that it's been consistent that people go to that $1,200, right? Those checks that former President Trump gave out as a sign of saying that he understands, he gets me, he's investing in us directly. I got checks from him. I got money.
And I do remember he was trying to get more money out before he lost the election, and Congress refused to get out more of the money, because I hear from people all the time, Daryl, all the time. I mean, but are they speaking? She has come out with an economic plan. Now, it's a plan that is echoed throughout the communities, throughout the broader American community, but she has been talking directly to Black men in particular about this economic plan to help entrepreneurs. What is their response to that?
And that was a very positive response.
Okay.
A lot of them had not heard, a lot of them had not heard of what she's proposing with regards to the $1 million forgivable loans that are sort of centered for Black men in the Black community. Some of them just had not heard about them, but when they started to hear about that she was putting together an agenda, an economic agenda
Mhm.
that was specifically directed toward Black men, they were very open to that and very, moved that she would take those types of steps. And so, what that raised in my mind was that again, we seem to be in a position where the message has got to get out as to what it is that she's doing so that people on the street know what it is that she's proposing. Those that are listening to MSNBC, CNN, and Fox aren't necessarily the ones that uh, are the ones that need to hear this information and making that determination with regards to their vote. So I think it is a question of marketing the information that she's now putting out.
Well, and it's not just Fox, and I don't say that as someone who has been a political pundit there, because I honestly I found that I had more political space there, Daryl.
Mhm.
Uh, you'd be surprised at the people who look at Fox. It ain't just one group of Americans. It's just like you'd be surprised at who voted for President Trump. I mean, I had one of my doctors, very, very progressive. I would see her at different fundraisers around New York, still do. She watched Fox faithfully. And I think we got to be very careful about putting people in boxes. That's why I think putting Black men, well, first of all, Black men are the second most loyal group voting bloc of the Democratic Party. If she does not win, it is not because Black women and Black men didn't basically stand together. Don't try it. See, I'm tired of hearing that because Black men, more than 80% of Black men, or about 80% of Black men, depending upon the poll you listen to, more than three-quarters of them support her strongly, and they will be at the polls. Black women, it's in the high 90s. Well, it's about 90%. She's got to get past 90% with the Black bloc in order for her to win, because that is how it works. If you're going to cross over, and as a Black person or someone who's perceived as Black, you're always going to be crossover in America. You have got to be a superstar with Black people before you can get over that hump. Is there anything that she can do? Because I hear such animus towards her. I mean, it's just something. Wow, I just I'm having to step back and say, what is this about? Something else is going. Do you know what I'm saying, Daryl?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's something else that's going on. I think that the current strategy that she's employing, I think it's going to be effective in the African American community and overall. And that strategy, as I see it, is doing as many interviews as she can on whatever platforms. She's going from the social media platforms to the adversarial platforms to the pro Democratic Party platforms. She's everywhere. She's taking difficult interviews. She's taking easy interviews. She's getting out there. And I think that is probably the best strategy for her right now, is to get out there and just get her word out and let everyone take it. Anyone who wants to take a shot at her. I mean, that's what we saw with, I don't remember his name,
Brett
uh,
Baer. Yeah.
Brett Baer from Fox. He took his shot. He missed. She showed that she was presidential timber. She showed that she could handle pressure. She showed that she could respond. And I think that it's that type of response that will register not only with her base but beyond. Because misogyny is real, right? The sexism is real. So to see her stand up and take him down and correct him, and for him to come back and say he was wrong, I think.
But wait, was that misogyny, or was that him doing his job? And I'm simply saying this: politics is a contact sport. It is not a sport for the faint of heart. It ain't for kids. And if you step into the arena, it is on and cracking. You don't know what these people are going to throw at you, and they will dig deep. Remember when Trump in 2016 had
Mhm.
several women who had charged Bill Clinton with sexual assaults? He had them sitting in the family box, and before they brought Hillary and him out, there was a lot of negotiating that went on to remove them from the family box, because she would have had to shake their hands. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying, y'all, it's not just politics. And I'm saying, just having grown up as someone who has been controversial. You got to expect it all. If
And
you're gonna be in this space, you got to expect the racism, the
Mhm.
misogyny, the misogynoir, all of that, and you got to be tough enough to handle it.
Right. And I think that she showed that she was,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's why I took my hat. I was like, I think that was a good move for her to go into the lion's den and to walk out, with a couple of scars, but to be able to walk
Scratches.
out of that lion, the scratches, right,
This
and she come
woman
out of
has
that lion's
won.
den.
She has made history several times in California, the most populous mixed state in America. She is tough. And I think because she is so pretty, really, because she's a gorgeous woman, and people underestimate people who are that good looking. Let's just keep it 100, okay? Don't underestimate her. This woman became U.S. Senator in California, the Attorney General for the state, the lead prosecutor in San Francisco. This is no shrinking violet. This woman is tough. Give her credit for that. I-
You don't get to be a top litigator by being soft and not being able to respond and being able to think on your feet. She certainly is very good in all those things and could come at it substantively. And that's what I think was so impressive. And use their own information to go against them and make them wrong. So that's all extremely impressive in terms of being on that stage. But it also gets into the policy, right? Because part of what she did was she brought into the conversation as they were trying to attack her on immigration, as they were trying to attack her on the stuff with the men in the prison, the transgender operations. She brought it back into former President Trump and what his positions were, how he denied what would have been the strongest immigration policy in the United States.
Mhm.
He is also, permitted the same transgender operations for federal inmates that they were now trying to fault her on. So, that's it goes beyond just the craft and the ability to debate and the craft, the ability to think, but this is the policy pieces that folks are trying to use to, or at least the conservatives are trying to use to push her down. That she's saying, wait a minute, look in the mirror before you start looking at me, and that's what I think was very effective for her. They never got to, and a lot of folks don't talk about the voting rights part of it, and what the voting rights attacks have meant and mean, and all the policy pieces that are in place for that. That's a major concern and should be a major concern for every American with regards to individuals' rights to vote and how the votes are going to be counted. I mean, these are huge policy pieces that I think that really weigh in. And it's interesting that whenever we start the discussion of talking about democracy in America and the attack of democracy on America, that it's usually the progressives that are pushing forward, and what used to be the conservative party that used to yell about this is now pulling back, and they don't have that discussion. It's just a very interesting, penelope that has occurred. And as Marx indicated, police reform. You know, look, the Biden administration pushed forward on police reform. They have they've come out with a register of bad police officers that they keep for the federal level, and the no chokeholds and all this other stuff. It's the states and the Congress that has locked it up.
Dr. LaShawn Latrice and everyone, hey, we're going to continue this conversation in the second hour because it's crunch time. And because it's crunch time, it's now your time to demand of these candidates what you need because they need your vote. Everybody needs your vote. Negotiate with whomever you feel you've got some conversational space. And for heaven's sake, whoever you are with, please carry your community with you. It's not just about you and you getting an invitation to a dinner or to the White House or whatever. Please leave that alone. There's some people out here who are starving. Okay? So please, and everyone, October 21st on Monday at Rainbow Push at 930 50th Street, we will have Greg Palast showing his movie Vigilantes Inc. You do not want to miss that. Daryl, as you well know, LaShawn Latrice, Dr. Latrice. This part of the reason we're doing this because she said, well, so many people at the convention, when they saw it, they said, when are you going to show this again? And how can I see it? You can go to saveyourvote.org. You can go to gregpalace.com. But more than that, we will have a panel discussion with Greg Palace at 930 50th Street. Wow, it's a whole lot of you tuning in. 930 50th Street. And I want you to go to the second hour link at about 10, 15 minutes. But I've got to hear from Dr. LaShawn Latrice. As they say, we save the best for last. Not that I don't love you, Attorney Mark Fancher. Not that we don't love you, Attorney Gerald Jones. Shrugging your shoulders. Shame on you. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, what are you hearing and seeing?
What I've been seeing is very similar to when you were asking Attorney Mark Fancher. Many people feel like the policy portion has been left out of the race in the respects of talking about the issues that are very key and impacting in communities just like, that look like us. When we think about policies, we don't want to be included just as a last thought or last minute option because things are not looking well. We want to be included from the beginning. And I think one thing that the advisors of this campaign didn't do well was they didn't strategize on who was important and who needed to be talked to. And it seemed like a lot of the conversation was just over many people's heads. And not a lot of issues have been discussed, even up until this point. I did see that she's circulating to various campaigns, places to campaign, but I also think that when questions are asked, she probably should focus on what she will be doing and not what has not been done, because those are not answers to questions by talking about what someone else has not done. And many times when people look at the debate and what's happened at the DNC, they already feel like, okay, this is just more rhetoric on top of rhetoric. It's not anything concise or anything that will trickle down to our communities and hit home for us. And I think people have really tapped out. As I talk to people, especially Black men, they feel like an agenda that is inclusive of them at this hour is a desperate attempt to get their vote, and it lacks sincerity and authenticity. So I don't know if she could do anything particular to get the trust and the support. There have been so many things that she's been asked head on that she chooses not to answer. And I think that she's losing ground because of that. I do think it's very bold of her to go into certain parameters that may be adverse, but I don't think it's trickling to the people that really need to see her, or what she really is made of, so to speak. So I'm a little, I'm still like I was in the beginning. I'm just not convinced about how this works, and I don't care about Trump. I'm not a person that even looks that way. I'm not taking anything from his campaign. I think he's done some things that have caught some people's attention, and I also think there's a lot of misinformation circulating around. But why wouldn't people zero in on the facts, on the things that are true and what hits home for people? I haven't heard it. I haven't heard people address police accountability. I haven't heard people talk about the migrant crisis. I haven't heard people talk about homelessness or poverty, mass incarceration, all those things that impact a community overall. Those things are just not those things that are being discussed. And she doesn't feel like she has to talk about herself as a prosecutor. No matter what people think about her, she doesn't feel like that's something that she needs to address. And I think that's one thing that's hurting her as well.
Well, Karen says, she said to you, Mark, do you support Trump? I can name a list of things that the Biden-Harris team has done for America and Black people. What has 45 or anyone else done? And you get such a large, loud, unchallenged platform. It's not unchallenged. I'm trying to let people talk, Karen. And that is my job. If you need another platform and you're here every day, and I really do appreciate that, or certainly most days, I appreciate that, and I hope that you're getting something that helps you. I want to hear from everybody, and everyone needs to be heard respectfully. As long as you come onto this platform, Attorney Jones and Attorney Fancher and Dr. Latrice, and you come with respect and love, you got space here. But I'm not going to be an echo chamber for anybody, because I want poverty to be ended, and people act like poverty is a dirty word. The University of Chicago is $100,000 a year. It's in my neighborhood. I live here. I don't know who can go there. Their private school is at the base $50 to $75,000 a year. Do you understand what I'm saying? High school. Who can afford that? Who? Are you serious right now? And see, that's what I mean. It's about making it about personality. And 45 is former President Trump. Yeah, him. You know what he did do? He did move the HBCU office back into the White House after Obama put it out. After we lost 40,000 black students, HBCU students, on their watch. That's why I'm saying you don't get beyond the personality. I need policy. We can't lose 40,000 students in the HBCU system, but we did. Where are they today, Daryl? Mark? Dr. Latrice? Where did those students go? I tell you where one of them went. I was in the shoe store and she was waiting on me. And this girl was so bright. I said, and it was August. I said, well, when are you on your way back to school? Because that was my presumption because of the way she was moving and talking. She said, well, I can't go back because of the new loan system. I can't get any loans. I can't go back to school. What? That's personal for me. Mark, that's personal for me. The people who come by Rainbow Push who have nothing to eat, that's personal for me. The people who can't afford lights and gas, that's personal for me. Maybe because you don't have to see that, and I have to see it because I'm in the grocery store. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't go to the grocery store right now. Maybe I need to use Instacart, Mark, because I'm getting followed in the store and I'm feeling uncomfortable. And someone's rolling up behind me too hard. And I'm like, well, I might have to pay for somebody's groceries or give them a little bit of money so I can get out the store. But also because, you know what? My parents were without. My father stood in a food line at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. That's part of my family history, and I'll never forget it. Because they didn't have parents. Well, my mother and father had 3 kids under 2, 1, and a newborn. And they needed some food because his scholarship money had run out. That's part of my family history. So I want to know who's going to speak to that. I could care less about the personal. Everybody's personal. Everybody who's running for president right now, everybody who's running for office, more than likely they are comfortable because it costs money to run. Come on, y'all. And we're going to be talking about this in the second hour. And so many of you have tapped in today. I want you to please tap into the second hour. But, Mark, I want you to speak to Karen because she thinks you sound like a Trumper. And I don't think so. John Holloman says he doesn't think Kamala is going to win. And we need to pivot our strategy just in case she doesn't win. What next? What say you?
Well, yeah, for the record, I do not support Donald Trump. I think he's so despicable in so many ways that it's sort of self-evident, and I don't need to point that out to anybody who's got half a brain. But where I am politically is totally checked out. Because of all of the issues and problems that you just mentioned, Santita, that are real and which neither candidate, neither party addresses, it reinforces for me my conviction that this entire process, the entire electoral process for president, is a charade. It's a sham. It's designed to keep us focused on meaningless issues and personalities, while real problems, real challenges, real crises go completely unaddressed and ignored. And to the extent that we look at them, we distort them and lie about them and create a phony narrative about what they are. There has been so much talk about the immigration problem. But what we never talk about, I mean, we only demonize the people, the poor, wretched people who are coming across the border trying to find a better life. We demonize them, talk about how horrible they are. Even the Democratic Party talks about how they need to shut this down and keep these people out. What we never talk about is the fact that the United States is responsible for them being so desperate that they are coming across the borders. It's not that these people dislike their countries, but this country, the United States, has ruined their countries. For decades and decades, they have exploited countries in Central and South America, raped and robbed their resources, usually through the use of propped up dictators who have created misery and hardship and poverty for the people there. And when there has been resistance by the people in those countries, the United States is the one that arms and finances thugs and armed groups that wreak havoc on poor, defenseless communities and create horror and terror and a state of misery, which is so bad that people are looking for a way out. And they come here, which is the source of their pain and misery, and we tell them that they're criminals because they're crossing the border. Look at Haiti and the decades and decades of misery that's been caused in that country by this country. And then when these people who are desperate, who because of the circumstances created by this country, come into this country, and not only do they come, but they come lawfully, they work hard, they do all that they can do, then they're accused of eating pets. So I can't buy into this entire process. I have rejected it. I checked out of it, and I'm looking for revolution. And to the extent that I can sound a message or raise a flag in favor of rejecting it, my vote is going to go with Cornel West. And for those who say that that's foolish, that that's hopeless, that it's a pipe dream, what I have to remind you of is the fact that in 1955, there was a lone Black woman who decided to go against the grain. Generations of Black people had said, well, let's go along with Jim Crow. Let's sit in the back of the bus. It would do us no good to try and resist this. Let's just hope that people somehow see the light of day, that they are inspired to do the right thing by us. This lone Black woman.
And wait a minute, and besides, they might kill me.
That's right. Or take my job if they don't do that. This lone Black woman said, I will stand up against this. I will resist it. And what it did is it triggered a movement that did crush Jim Crow. And that's God. See, he has given us instructions. He said, all I want you to do, you can't control what political candidates do. You can't control what establishment capitalist political parties can do, but you can control your own actions. And all I want you to do is to love me and to love your fellow human beings and to honor them and to be faithful and to believe that I will carry you through. And if we as individuals do that, we don't know how God will choose to use us, even when what we do seems nonsensical. If we step out on faith and believe that because we're doing as individuals what God has called us to do, we don't have to figure it out. We don't have to be pragmatic. We don't have to play political games. We just have to do what we've been called to do, and we don't know how God will use whatever resistance to evil we choose to engage in. And so that's where I stand. I do not support Trump because he's evil, and I don't support Kamala Harris because I don't know her as a person, but what she does and what she represents, in my mind, is quite evil. And so, therefore, I must go a different direction, and I must act and vote according to conscience.
And on this show, you have a platform. You have a platform, Daryl Jones. You, Dr. Latrice, and you too, Karen. If I had, I'm going to get a phone number. I'm going to work on that so that I can hear your voices, because I want you to be heard. I don't believe in censorship. I don't believe in suppressing voices. I don't believe in that. And somehow or another, those of us on the left, and I am on the left, I'm an OG in this piece and in this space. Somehow we want to shut people down and shut them up. That's very dangerous. And I don't support that. And I won't have that here. Whether I agree or disagree with my guest, I told you the baseline for me is respect. It's love. That's the commandment. It is not a suggestion. This is not, while I'm a registered Democrat, I'm an independent one. And I tell you what else. There's an old joke in the Black church. I'm a Baptist, but I'm glad God isn't. How about that? I just want God to be God and direct me. I want to rise up to God. I don't want God on my side. I want to be on God's side. That's all I want. So beyond fighting for these people who've already made it, who've already gotten on, And you're gonna have to vote for somebody. So vote. But when you do vote, make sure that if you get in the room, make sure that you negotiate for someone other than yourself. Too many of us do that. I've seen them do it. That's why they never wanted my father in the room because he would ask the questions that would get him, they would want to throw him out, Daryl. But guess what? He was sent there by Black people, and he was so supported by Black folks they couldn't do it. But that's what they tried to do. You need to be willing to be unpopular. They do know that someone came into Rosa Parks' house and they robbed her in Detroit. Who would do that? There's no respect. She was chased out of Alabama after she did that. After that courageous act, she was not safe in Alabama, not just from white folks, but Black people thought that she was too controversial. Then she had to go to Detroit, and John Conyers hired her. He said, I can't let you starve. Then she had no car, and she had no place to live. So my father worked out getting her a house, went to Ford to get her a car. And then somebody else they still walked in her house. And if they walk into your house, they're ready to kill you, y'all. Hold on. Stop being personal. If you're going to be personal about some child who's starving today. Some adult who's starving today. Someone who's wringing out your groceries who cannot afford to buy the food in the grocery store. Don't get cute. Don't act like we're not 5 steps out of slavery. Enough. So Mark will always have space here. Daryl will always have space here. Dr. Latrice and other people will have space here. So as long as you are respectful, you can be here. The moment you're disrespectful, you don't have space here. Because I am not in the tank for that. So all of you who continue to tune in, please go over, click the link for the second hour. We have more to discuss. We're going to continue this discussion. And hey, and Karen, I love you and I want you to be here. I want you to be here, but I want you to understand what the mission is. I say it to you all the time. Say it all the time. And on that, I will not yield. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a couple of minutes. We're going to hop on over there right now. Sending you much love. And y'all give Karen some love because she's here. Even as she disagrees with us all the time, she comes back. And I love you and appreciate you and I value you. And I respect you. I absolutely respect you. And I need you. That's it. What did you say, Jeanette? Samuel's battle? Wow, all we can ask is to understand how the non-Harris camps think. We got an earful. Santita Jackson and friends, if you haven't, please interview on your platform for the real hard questions they have. Absolutely. And Arlene, you can agree. I love you too. I'm glad you're here. So everybody get on over to the second hour. A whole lot of you are tuned in. I don't know what popped. Maybe it's because I started talking about the algorithms. Y'all been messing with me, Facebook and everybody else. But that's all right. I'm not alone. So I'm not alone. So get on over there to the second hour. It's gonna be crowded, but I am not mad, and I want people to absolutely be understood. How about that? So back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. I'm gonna wait for this to pop to 900 people viewing. How about that? We're gonna get you up there. Come on, there you go. Boom. I love it. Get on over to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. A lot of people heard y'all today. We're going to keep on pushing. Remember, Rainbow Push at 930 50th Street on Monday night at 6 p.m. You need to be at Rainbow Push where we let you see Vigilantes Inc. That is the rebranded name of the KKK. And you will see how they are working to suppress your vote up until through Election Day. They'll be able to take you off the voter rolls. We're going to talk about it. You're going to see the movie and you're going to talk about it. We're going to have some light snacks. All right, everybody. And Haiti may not have enough of the right resources for the U.S. to grant. Oh, no. That's why they're keeping Haiti. They have so many resources. We're already all over that. And we need to get us out of there, too. Whew. The Santita Jackson Show, second hour, coming up right now. But you got to click the next link. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.